Hello, my name is Bren with the Plano Public Library. Before we get started with our Simple Budgets with Excel class, I need to let you know about some ground rules we've set up. You will be muted and have video blocked during this class. You will be seeing my screen. At the top of your screen, you can find an exit full screen option if you need to get to other things on your computer during today's class, including the Excel program. Please note that this class is being recorded and will be posted at a later date. You will be sent an email with a link to the recording. At the top of your screen, under View Options, you can find the option to exit full screen, and you are welcome to ask questions during the program or request that the instructor repeat information at any time. You should see an icon at the bottom of your screen that says Chat, which you can click to open the chat window. Chat is set to be seen by library staff only. Making a personal budget that tracks our spending on a monthly basis is one of those things that we always hear we should do, but it doesn't always happen. For some, it's not that fun and can be restrictive, while others may not know where to begin when it comes to budgeting. However, creating a budget is an essential step towards financial stability. Today, we will go over the benefits to keeping track of your expenses, some tips to help you become more financially literate, and we'll demo how to create your own monthly expense tracker in Excel. So our agenda for the day, we are going to, after exploring the budgeting tips and information, explore budget templates in Excel, followed by getting started with a template of your choice and inputting budget information into a template. Then we will explore creating an example budget from scratch in Excel. So what is budgeting and why is it important? Budgeting is essentially a plan to spend your money. Creating a budget ensures that you will always have enough money for the things you need and prevents overspending. When you do it successfully, it can help you attain financial goals, save money, and keep you in control of your finances. Let's see, are there any questions at this time?
Right now, our chat is clear.
All right, fantastic. Let's go through some tips to help you create a practical monthly budget. First, you want to make sure to gather any financial paperwork that you want to include. It's good to have all your information ready to go as you're getting started. That can include information such as bank account information, your paychecks, taxes, and any other things that you want to incorporate into your budget. You'll want to calculate your income. For a budget to work successfully, you'll want to know about how much money you make on a regular basis. For those that get a regular paycheck based on hours worked, that can be easier than if you are working based on commission or freelancing, where it may not be a consistent number each month. But if you can somehow estimate that, that is going to help you immensely as you're determining how much money you have to work with. You want to make sure to create a list of monthly expenses. Depending on how you are spending your money, that can be a very broad list or a very specific one. But nonetheless, you need to figure out all the areas in which you are spending your money so you can figure out where to allocate your funds as you are working. You want to determine fixed and variable expenses. Things like rent and certain utilities may be a consistent price each month, while other things, that could be almost anything, gasoline, food, discretionary expenditures such as clothing, those may be variable. There may be some months when you don't spend anything on them and other months where you spend quite a bit. So you'll want to determine what the ones are that you'll want to make sure to have some money available for if necessary. Next step is to total your monthly income and expenses. This is where the spreadsheet really comes in handy because you can lay it all out for yourself and see exactly how much money of a deficit or an overage you might have. And lastly, as you're trying to work through your budget, you'll want to make adjustments to your expenses. You may determine pretty quickly where there are areas you're spending too much money or can cut back your spending easily. And those numbers are the ones where you'll need to make preparations to adjust them. Okay, are there any questions at this moment?
Right now, the chat is still clear.
Fantastic. If you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and our chat moderator, Nikki, will assist or ask me the question as necessary. Okay, so we recommend often using Excel to track expenses because it is a program that has a lot of features that are beneficial to this effect. You can either use templates or create your own. So the templates in Excel can be pretty helpful, and that's actually what we're going to look at first. So I'm going to exit the PowerPoint here and open up Excel. Are we still able to see the screen here?
Yes, we can still see it.
Okay, fantastic. So when you open Excel, you'll see a screen something like this with all of the recent spreadsheets over on the left side, and then kind of a layout of various templates over here. The benefit of having, I'm going to actually make this smaller for myself here. Actually, I think I'm going to reshare the screen really quickly, if you'll bear with me. Okay, should just be seeing the Excel program now. That way I can adjust it accordingly. So when you want to look for templates, you'll see this suggested searches bar over here. Budgets is often one of them, or you can simply type it in the search bar. So we'll click here. It's actually going to search online for budget templates that match or whatever you type into the search bar. And they vary quite a bit. You can scroll through them and see that some are very specific, such as holiday budget planner, medical office startup expenses. That's an interesting one. Stuff related to small businesses and marketing, party planning. But there's also several that are more basic balancing and budgeting sheets. If you click on any one of them, it will bring up a description of what it does, as well as who provides the template. In this case, Microsoft is the builder of this template. And if you want to use that template, all you have to do is click Create, and it will open it up for you to use. So the way these templates work typically is they include a descriptive worksheet here. So it will explain what to do, how it works, followed by any tabs related to the actual content. In this case, this budget worksheet is very colorful, has some instructions, but also has some numbers already put in there. So if you wanted to use one of these, you would want to go through and basically put in your own projected costs. So starting up here at the top, we can adjust these numbers to suit our needs. So perhaps your rent is a little bit more than what's listed there. We'll actually delete these actual costs for now, since they're just for demonstration. You'll just put in your actual numbers all the way down. So you don't have to pay that. And then what you would do, so this is what you would put in at the beginning of the month. And then at the end of the month, when you've actually spent that amount, you would go ahead and put in here what you actually paid. So if you spent more on phone, for instance, than you listed, you would put 50 in here. And you can see that the sheet actually calculates the difference. So in the case of the mortgage or rent, which was a consistent fixed cost, there was no extra difference. So you didn't pay more or less than you expected. But for phone here, if you paid 50 when you expected to pay 30, you paid $20 more than you expected, and the sheet calculates that accordingly. One other thing, of course, you'll want to adjust up here is your income to reflect what you actually make. In this case, let's say 3,600, and perhaps some extra income came from a tax return or a refund that you got. And of course, then you would put in your actual monthly income here, which could be fixed or variable, depending. And you would want to go through this entire sheet. The challenging part with these templates is that they often include quite a number of categories that may or may not be relevant to your life. If you have some experience working with Excel spreadsheets, you might feel comfortable making adjustments to them. You might, for instance, feel comfortable finding a way to remove, if you don't use the bus or taxis ever, you could remove this bus and taxi fare line on this sheet. We also do not have a state tax in Texas, so you could remove that if you wanted to do so. You may not have an investment account that you use. Regardless of what your specific circumstances are, if you're comfortable adjusting spreadsheets, you could give it a try. But otherwise, you may find this unwieldy to work with, since there are just so many different options here. So looking at the spreadsheet, are there any questions about how to use these templates before we start looking at how you might actually put together your own budget in Excel?
Right now, it doesn't look like there are any.
Okay, fantastic. I think I will actually give people a few moments to consider questions, and we'll just go ahead and put in some numbers to this spreadsheet to make it look more realistic. So let's just go ahead and add some numbers in here. We'll say that the actual monthly income was that. So for transportation, you might have a $400 vehicle payment. We'll, for the time being, leave any lines blank that are not relevant to what we're doing here. So for instance, in this case, you would have no bus or taxi fare. So we'll leave it blank as opposed to trying to delete it. We'll go ahead and put in $50 of fuel, leave maintenance blank. One thing to keep in mind, of course, is that this is a monthly budget for a single month. So if this month is one where you would have vehicle maintenance, you would want to put a number in there. Otherwise, you can leave it blank. Insurance. In this case, we'll go ahead and just add a number to make it show up. The way this works is that the spreadsheet uses a formula, like you can see up here in the formula bar, to calculate the difference. So this is a formula that we're going to use quite a bit later on, or something similar to it. It basically takes the two numbers, the two cells, and subtracts them. Groceries, we'll say 800, and another 200 for dining out. $50 of pet food, and $20 of toys for pets. Personal care, we will put aside some money for medical. We'll plan to buy some clothing. Everything else looks fine there. For entertainment, we will say that we are going to, one thing you can do, for instance, if we are not a family or an individual that buys CDs, is you could actually, instead of using that category, you could change the title. So we'll say streaming. So in this case, we're going to just spend some money on streaming rather than CDs. And it doesn't change the actual outcome of the sheet, because the whole point is to categorize expenses that are in the same general category and calculate them accordingly. Loans, we'll say we're paying some credit card loans. And I think that will do it. So if we go back and add some actual expenses here, we'll kind of demonstrate how it can look a little bit different. Some of these are very consistent costs, while others might actually be less or more as variable costs. Mhm. We'll say we did not get sick this month, so we managed to keep our medical costs down. And we did splurge a little bit on clothes, though. Okay, I think that does it. So we've got some real numbers in the spreadsheet throughout it. So now that we've done that, we can actually go and see exactly what's going on here. So in this case, up at the top, we have this little box here to give us kind of a summary. We see the projected balance, which basically takes the projected income and then subtracts all of the projected expenses from it. So when that comes out here, we see that we expected to have an overage of almost $500, which is pretty good. If you're looking at your budget and this is the case, then that's a really good place to be in because that means you have some extra money. And from there, you can make decisions about whether you want to save it or if there's something you've been saving up for that you want to spend it on, or if you want to tuck it away for a rainy day, as they call it. Then you have the actual balance area where it actually shows you what your real numbers were. In this case, we put in that our monthly income was slightly higher than we had projected. So in that case, that's some extra money to work with. And as you go through the spreadsheet, you can see each of the categories has its own subtotal here. So with housing, we see that we actually spended $40 more than expected on that. But in transportation, we spent $15 less than expected. And looking down through this, it looks like the area where this balance really saved money was the food area, where the actual cost was much lower than the projected cost. And so that's how I believe we were able to end up with a significantly higher actual balance than projected. And then, of course, it shows you that difference. So with that in mind, with this idea and this example spreadsheet in mind, we'll go ahead and plan to move on to working through an actual from scratch budget. But before we do that, are there any questions?
The chat is still clear. We did have one person raise their hand though. So if you do have a question, please make sure to just drop it into the chat and I can go ahead and pass that question along to Bryn.
Fantastic. Yes, please do so. I'm going to go ahead and save this spreadsheet to the desktop so that I can access it again if we want to come back to it. Let's just do this. All right, there it is. So we'll go ahead and go back to File. I'm going to open the example from scratch spreadsheet to work through. Okay, I think I will now need to reshare my screen, so bear with me. Okay, it should have switched over at this point to the other spreadsheet. So you should see a nearly empty spreadsheet. And this is something if you would like to work along with me, if you have Excel on your computer, you are welcome to do so. Otherwise, you're of course welcome to revisit this in our recording once it is released. So with that in mind,
Bryn,
we're
sorry,
yes.
real quickly. We did have someone use our Q&A feature and said that the chat is actually disabled. So I apologize about that, you guys. If anyone has questions, there is also the option for Q&A that you should find at the bottom of your screen. So for today, if you have questions, go ahead and type those questions into the Q&A and we can talk through there.
That is quite interesting.
Yeah, so I apologize about that, but we'll try to get that fixed for next time. But yes, if you have any questions, go ahead and type it into that Q&A and I will pass those questions along to Bryn.
Thank you, Nikki. All right. Let's see here. So looking at the example spreadsheet here, we're going to set up some initial formatting. So you can follow along exactly or decide which formatting you want. In this case, we'll change our font up here. So to select all all cells, you can click this little triangle at the corner of your rows and columns, select all cells, And then you can use this drop down here to pick a new font. To match the other tabs here, I'm going to use Century Gothic. Also, while keeping all cells highlighted, we're going to adjust the width of our columns. You can do that by selecting any space between the columns. You'll see this little divider bar thing as your cursor. And you'll just drag it to, in this case, we're going to move it to 20. So we'll just wait until we get to there. You can see above there is the width and then that exact width in pixels. And by selecting all columns, all of the widths have now changed. Okay, so we've adjusted the formatting and we're going to move on to the first steps of creating our budget. So in this case, we want to start by labeling our columns. Oh, fantastic. It looks like the chat is now fixed. So if you do have a question, you can use that hopefully as well. We're going to go ahead and label the columns of our budget. So to label a column, you'll simply select any cell that you want to type in and type the words you want to have there. So we'll start by labeling month, year for cell A1. We're going to label cell B1 category. We're going to label cell C1 monthly budget. We will change D1 to monthly actual. So those will be our projected versus actual numbers. And then cell E1 is going to be difference. Now, we may like that formatting or we may want to change it. In this case, we'll go ahead and highlight all 5 of those cells, select bold. You can change the formatting up here accordingly. So we'll select bold to change that. And we can actually choose a fill color as well. So you can do that by selecting this little paint bucket here, dropping it down, and we'll just choose this nice blue color for the time being. All right. Moving on to step 2. Let me move this back over here. So step 2, we are going to label the sections. So in cell A2, we are going to go ahead and type income. Let me just double check something here to make sure. Okay. So in cell A2, we are going to type income. To go ahead and bold this one as well. So cells A2 through E2, we are going to highlight and select a fill color once again. So we'll just use this green for the example. And then in cell A6, we've given ourselves some space for the income area of our budget. We'll type expenses on this line. And once again, we're going to go ahead and bold it and choose a fill color. We'll choose a dark blue for this one. That gives us kind of the basis of our spreadsheet. And we'll go ahead and move to step 3. Looks like they chose similar colors to me in this example. I'm going to move this over because I can't see all of it. There we go. So for step 3, we are going to label the rows. So in this case, we are going to go to cell B3 and type job, a salary. And then in cell B4, we will type job B salary. And of course, you can adjust this as you wish. So for instance, if you have just one job, you might only need that. So you can put whatever your role is, whatever company you work for, salary. And then in cell B5, you're going to select income total. All right. Cell A5 and B5. So we're going to go ahead and try something called merging cells. In this case, you select all the cells you want to merge. And we will go ahead up here to this icon and use this drop down. You have a few different options here, including merge and center, as well as merge across and merge cells. We'll select merge cells for the time being. We also want to bold the cell and click align right. So this alignment helps you determine where in the cell the text will be located. So you can just go like this, click this one, and it moves it to the right-hand side of the cell. All right. Okay, moving to expenses. In cell A7, we want to go ahead and start typing some broad categories. So we're going to type food in A7, car, A8, health in A9, utilities in A10, debt in A11, and miscellaneous in A12. Once we've typed those broad categories, we can go ahead and select them and align right. So once again, they are moved to the right-hand side of the cell, which is more of a stylistic thing than a requirement, but I personally think it looks nice. It also helps keep our headings here close by what will become the subheadings. Okay. Now in cell B7, we're going to start typing some subcategories. So B7 will be groceries. Now, one thing here is that we have not left ourselves any space for additional food categories. So the way to fix that is to select the row either above or below where you want to. Well, actually, in this case, you'll need to select the row below where you want the new row to appear. Once you've done that, you can right-click and click Insert, which should give you a brand new row to work with. In this case, we're going to go ahead and add eating out as our secondary food category. Then we're going to go ahead and continue adding rows as needed to add some more subcategories. So underneath car, we're going to add gasoline. And then right below that, we're going to add another row and include maintenance. For health, we've got a few different categories. So here's a trick you can use to add multiple rows at once. I'm going to highlight, since I want 2 more rows, I'm going to highlight 2 rows right below where I want them to appear. Since I've highlighted 2 rows, Excel knows when I click Insert to give me 2 more rows. You can do that for however many rows or columns you want to add in here. It's very convenient for that reason. So for health, we're going to go ahead and add fitness, doctor visits, and medicine. Okay. Under utilities, we're going to be adding several different options here. So water, sewer, gas, electricity, internet, and cell phone. In this case, that means I need to select 4 rows and right-click and click Insert to create 4 new rows under utilities. So in cell B14, I'm adding water, sewer. B15 will be gas. Nope. Here's one area where sometimes Excel is a little bit too smart. You'll notice that I added, I typed gas, but immediately Excel put in gasoline because it was predicting based on what was already in this row or this column. So in this case, to edit that, I can double click the cell and backspace until it has the content I want. And there it goes again, because I typed it wanted to add gasoline. So I'll just backspace and click Enter. All right. Electricity is going to be in cell B16. Internet and cable will be B17. And cell phone will be in cell B18. And once again, if you're working along with me, you may have different categories. You are welcome to add them in as we go or go back later and do the same. For debt, we're going to go ahead and add 2 additional rows under debt so that we can put in auto loan, student loans, and mortgage. And lastly, miscellaneous. Since there's nothing below miscellaneous, we don't have to add rows here. So we're going to put entertainments. If I can spell it, that would be fantastic. And veterinary. Okay. Now in cell A4, because we need some bottom of spreadsheet rows here, we will go ahead and add expense subtotal. I'm going to highlight cells A24 and B24, merge them. If we click merge and center, then the text is, if we click merge and center, then the text is going to be in the middle of the new cell. But we actually want it to be on the right. So we're going to go ahead and align right and bold that cell as well. And lastly, in cell A25, we are going to be adding net income. And once again, we're going to merge these two cells, bold them, and right align them. So it should look, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so we can see the whole thing here. Should look something like this. As before we move on to the next section of this spreadsheet, are there any questions?
Right now, our chat is clear.
Fantastic. My headset is giving me just a little bit of feedback. So if it starts to sound really bad, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and move on to the second part of step 3.
Oh, I got a quick question. Bryn,
Oh, sure.
Where is the merge on older versions of Excel?
That's a very good question. Please drop in the chat what version of Excel you are using, and I will see what I can find out.
Okay, and another question, adding rows, what do we need to select? So I think
Okay.
what do you need to select in order to add rows?
So if we're going in to add a new row, what you'll want to do is select the row immediately below where you want to add the row. So if I want to have a row right above utilities here, I would select the row with utilities in it. Using over in this left-hand side, you can see this, this bar here. So you select where it says 14, and then you right click, and in that bar down here, there should be the option for insert. And so a new row will appear there. Have we heard back from what version of Excel for that?
We got is Excel 97. So I am looking up right now to see if I can find that information for our patron.
Okay, thank you. And while that is being looked up, we're going to go ahead and move on to the second part of step 3 here. So we have here the options we had already picked. Oh, it looks like maybe this is just a rehashing of what was previously done. So we'll go ahead and move on to step 4, I suppose. Okay, so now that we have the basics of our spreadsheet, we're going to go ahead and add formulas. So let's see here. Let me move this, adjust this a little bit so I can see everything I need. So we're going to go ahead and put in some fake numbers. So for cells C3 through E25, we're going to add some zeros. So
Bryn, real quickly before you get any further, we've just got the questions rolling in now. So we have another question asking, would it still be necessary to have a Quicken account? And I think I lost track of the chat while I was trying to find this Excel 97. So I'm not sure exactly what that's in reference to, but would it still be necessary to have a Quicken account? Okay, Donna, if you would mind expanding on your question in the chat, we'll try to get that answered for you.
Okay, any other questions at this moment?
Right now, no.
Okay, keep posting those questions. I'll do my best with them. While we are waiting to hear some more about Quicken, I'm going to go ahead and put some zeros in cells C3 through E25. So we just want a bunch of zeros in here. So any cell that should have a number in it eventually is going to have 0. And I'm getting tired of typing these zeros already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the copy paste feature. So I'm going to select one cell that has 0 in it, right click, and there's a few ways you can do this, but I'll right click, click copy, and select all the cells I want to add 0 to, and click, well, I have a few different paste options here, but we'll just click paste, and all of the cells are now filled with zeros. So if you select a single cell that you want to be in multiple places, you can copy that and click however many cells you want that to appear in, and it will appear there once you paste it. So it's a very convenient little trick if you're doing a lot with a lot of numbers. Okay, so let's see here. The next thing we are going to want to do is adjust these zeros so that they look like numbers for money. So we'll go ahead and select all of the zeros, and we're going to go ahead and go into the Home tab here, and we have this little drop down here where we can actually choose the number format. And right underneath it, one option is the accounting number format, which we will go ahead and select. This does something interesting since these are all zeros. It actually makes them appear as a little dash here so that way we're not distracted by zeros in our accounting spreadsheet. If we type any other number, it's going to appear like that, where we can see it has $15.00. Since this is a budget and I don't really want there to be a bunch of decimal points, I really want it to be more broad so that I can contemplate the numbers more appropriately. We can actually highlight all these cells as well and adjust the number of bullet points or the decimal points using these two options up here, increase decimal or decrease decimal. So we'll just decrease all of the dollar decimals to 0 decimals. And so now any numbers that appear in here will just be whole numbers. So we're going to change that back to 0. Okay, now we're going to put in some formulas. So in income total, what I want to do is I want to use the sum function. So to increase or to include the sum function, we're going to add cells C3 and C4. So in cell C5, I'm going to go ahead and type equals sum, and then I'm going to start my function by adding an open parentheses. And then I'm going to select these two cells here, C3 and C4, and then close my parentheses. So it should say equals sum parentheses C3 colon E4 close parentheses, and press enter. Of course, since the sum is 0 of 0 plus 0 is 0, it's still a 0. So let's put in some numbers to test this out. Let's put 15 here and 20 here. So we can see that this has successfully added 15 and 20 to 35. So that means it's working for us. We'll go ahead and change these back to 0 for the moment. Now we can easily move functions around and copy them as well. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this sum or this formula into the other cells here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy. So right click, copy. And then I'm going to paste right here into monthly actual. And something cool that Excel does is it will go ahead and change the cells that are being included in a formula based on proximity. So in this case, this formula used the two cells immediately above the cell in question. So when we copied it to cell D5, it also uses the two cells immediately above cell D5. And the same when we copy it over here to cell E5, it also uses cells E3 and E4, which is very convenient for us because Typing formulas can be exhausting. Okay, now we're going to do a similar thing down in cell C24. We're going
And before you move on, we do have a
yes.
quick question. Would you mind explaining why, when it comes to formatting the cells, you place zeros in the cells first? Why can't you just place the money sign in right away?
If so, let's see here. I think, let me actually go back to this spreadsheet here. So if I put $0, it's going to interpret it. Oh, it looks like it interpreted as currency. So you could put the dollar sign in first. Excel is smart enough to interpret that. But since all of the money, the numbers you're using for quantities of money are going to be in number format, it's one less step to just type the numbers in as opposed to adding a dollar sign before each one. Like typing each one in here is going to take a minute. So it's easier just to type the numbers in and then go back and make it show up with the dollar sign because it's going to look the same, right? Does that help a little bit?
I think that does. That makes sense. Thank you, Bryn.
Fantastic. There's a lot of things you can do in Excel many different ways. And so in some cases, I'm going to be doing something differently than you might choose to do it, and that's perfectly fine. I am just sharing my tips and tricks for how I might do things. So for income total, we've done that part. For expenses total, we're going to go ahead and use the similar sum function. We'll go ahead and type this in. So equals sum, parentheses, and we're trying to sum up this entire column here. So we're going to select those, and then we are going to finish with those close parentheses. And once again, because 0 plus 0 is 0, we will end up with 0. But if we put in some numbers, we can see that that is still accurate and still calculating appropriately. And once again, if we want to copy that formula across, we can do so. So we can see here that C7 through C23 is the current sum. If we copy and paste to a new cell, it's going to essentially transpose the areas where the sum is being done. So since we wanted the row right above, or the column right above the expense total to be calculated, it's going to go ahead and pull that from this cell instead. And we'll go ahead and copy that once again to cell E24 so that it also calculates the same number. Okay. And in net income, we're going to go ahead and use the subtraction formula. So in this case, we want to subtract our total income and our expense totals. So let's go ahead and put in equals. And rather than typing these, you can click the cell name to input that directly. So we're going to do equals, click on income total C5 minus expense total C24. And that is the extent of our cell. So we're going to go ahead and press enter. And then we're going to copy that formula into cells D and E25 as well for the same reason. Okay. And lastly, we do need the difference column here to work out. So in cell E3 up here, we're going to go ahead and put in D3 minus C3. You can click them. Oh, we forgot the equal sign. That's important. If you don't put the equal sign in, it will not interpret it as a formula, and it just won't work. So we'll go and do this. And since D3 minus E3, or D3 minus C3 is consistent, we also want D4 minus C4. We can just copy this same formula all the way down across all of our income and expensive marks. Okay.
Bryn,
All
a
right.
quick question about what you're
Yes.
doing right now.
Mhm.
Why are we not using parentheses here?
I'm guessing you mean in the formulas.
Yes.
That's because, so these are, this kind of formula where it's just a mathematical equation does not use one of Excel's specialty like logical formulas where it has a precursor. If you put equals in the cell and input some numbers, it knows to do that math essentially. So in this case, I just added 15 plus 15 and it brought out 30. If you're using more of a specialty formula where it needs to know exactly what you're asking it to do, that's when you'll need to use the parentheses. All right, any other questions before we move on to step 5?
We do, I think, a little bit of clarification from our earlier question about Quicken. So the question here is, important categories have tax reporting that could be transferable to report forms. Would that function be usable with this format, or would a bookkeeping application like Quicken or QuickBooks be needed to do that?
I am not sure about that. So the way we are using Excel right now is more for personal budgeting reasons. I would, if you want to know more about for more tax related things, that anything that's very financially focused, we can't provide too much guidance on at the library. But if you have a question about software like QuickBooks, I would submit that as a book a librarian question in hopes that, or an ask a librarian question in hopes that we can get you an answer to that one. And Nikki can share that link in the chat as well. All right. Any additional questions before we are looking at the next steps?
Right now, we are all clear. And yes, I'm about to drop that link to Ask a Librarian in the chat for everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so we are looking at step 5 here. So we're going to just add some nice looking borders and stuff. So we're going to highlight all cells in our little spreadsheet here. And we're going to go to home. And actually, it's not home. It's going to be, where is it? Ah, there it is. So our borders that we can choose are here. We're going to use this drop down here and we're going to select all borders. You can do all kinds of cool things with borders, but this will at least get us started. We are also going to, looks like we're going to do a few more. We're going to highlight these ones here and select thick bottom border. So we can do this one here, thick bottom border, so it appears nice and bold. So cell A4 through E4. Okay, so we're going to add some more bottom borders here. We can do double bottom border for a little bit of like a precursor there. We're going to do the same thing in these 2 rows. So double bottom border and another one. And highlight column A and set width using autofit column width. So one thing you can do, so we already previously set the column widths, but if you double click on this this border between after a column that you've highlighted, you can actually cause it to automatically calculate how wide it needs to be. So we'll just do that. And it reduced our column width to essentially the minimum it can be without hiding text, which is a pretty cool feature for making your spreadsheets look nice. We're going to go ahead and make sure that these columns here, C through E, are still 20. Looks like they're actually a little bit wider now. Make them a little bit narrower. And A2 through E2. So we're going to go ahead and merge these cells here and merge these cells here. So we just highlight them and click merge and center. And it does that for us. Okay, so we've got some nice formatting going on. So we'll move to step 6, which is template. Okay. Well, in this case, what we're actually going to do is just put in some numbers. So we'll go ahead and see what we're going to do here. We're just going to play around with some numbers and see how it looks in the end. So we've got, we'll say that our monthly budget, our salary is going to be, put in 1,800. We'll put in some prices down here. So let's say 800 for groceries, 200 for eating out, 50 for gasoline. Just to see how these formulas actually work. Mm-hmm. We'll just say that for now we're not working with the debt. So you can see that we put in these numbers here, and much like the template, it actually went ahead and started calculating for us. So because we have 0 in all of the monthly actual, the difference is just the numbers. But down here at the bottom, we can see that we have our income total as well as our expense total, and then the net income. So in this case, we have achieved the first goal of budgeting, which is to earn more than you spend. So in this case, we have earned $129 more than we have spent, which is a surplus, which is great. Let's go ahead and actually look at step 7, which will have some real numbers in it. So here we are. We have some real numbers in the spreadsheet. We can see that the income here has exceeded, well, no, rather, the income here matches between the monthly budget and the monthly actual. So that's makes sense. The numbers are 0. In this case, we can see that the grocery budget for this month exceeds the expected expenses. So the deficit here is $32. And then for eating out, the deficit was $71. But for the rest of the spreadsheet, it looks like we have, it either broke even or hit a surplus. And in the end, we can see that there is the expense total, or the difference between the two. There was a slight deficit, which means this month we spent more than we expected to. But even so, the net income still was positive, which means the budget exceeded expectations. So we made more money than we spent. One thing to note about these budgets is that your numbers probably won't look quite as nice as this, especially at first. Budgeting is a practice and takes some work to actually really get into the habit of it. So if you're just starting out working on budgeting, you may find that you are spending way more than you intend to spend, and that's okay. You have to be compassionate to yourself and just make small goals as you try to decrease areas of spending and find ways to really either decrease deficit or increase surplus as you please. Before we go back to the PowerPoint and wrap up, are there any final questions about this this budget that we're looking at here?
We do have a question about if the steps here that we've gone through are going to be made available to our patrons at the end of this lesson so that they can reference it in the future when they're doing real budget building, or will they just have to go and view this on YouTube once it's posted?
We can probably share this spreadsheet. My email address is included in the PowerPoint, so if you want to copy that down once we go back there, just send me a message and I will send that back to you.
Perfect. And then a question that I think you might be covering here in just a moment, but some good resources to learn about Excel.
Fantastic. Yes, let's definitely, I'm going to do a new share so that we can pull back to the PowerPoint as well as some other resources. So give me just a second here. We'll go ahead and do screen 1. We're going to close this PowerPoint out and pull the PowerPoint back up. Are you still able to see the presentation? Oh.
No.
No, we're not. Okay. Let's see here. I actually want to share. I'm going to go ahead to, there we go. And there we are.
Yes,
so,
we can see that.
Fantastic. So resources for learning Excel. In addition to our classes, we have a lot of resources in our Research and Learn databases collection. I would recommend two of them in particular for learning Excel. So that would be LinkedIn Learning and Udemy. I'm more familiar with LinkedIn Learning. To get to either of them, you'll want to go to Research and Learn. I went through those steps automatically, so let's go back and do them again. Business and Career. And then you'll scroll down through Business and Career. They're in alphabetical order. So under LinkedIn Learning, you'll go to Access. You'll need to log in with your library card. And once you're in, you can search all kinds of different Excel or any database or software programs. If I search Microsoft Excel, it brings up 163 different 163 different options, 177 results. And you've got everything from essential training in 2.5 hours to a 7-hour learning path to master Microsoft Excel, a 25-hour learning path. So wherever you're at with your Microsoft Excel expertise, there is something here for you. The other option that comes to mind is Udemy, which let's just look at it really quickly to see kind of what their, well, maybe we can do that. It won't let me log in and I don't have an account, but they certainly have lots of resources. And I think, let me actually just search Udemy. I think you can actually look at their options without being logged in. So let's see here. And yes, we have 100,000 results for Excel. And with your library card, you can actually watch many of these. I can't guarantee all of them, but you can watch many of these for free. So just make sure to access them through our databases website and check it out. All right, so let me go ahead and pull back up the slideshow.
While you're doing that, Bryn, we did get another question, and it says, this shows 1 month. How do we save that month and add the next month to another workbook?
That is a very good question. So when you're designing how you want your budget to appear, you may want to consider a different format than just 1 month. The idea of having the 1 month budget is essentially that you would save a new file each month. So you start with a template, you'd save 1 month for January 2023, then a new file for February 2023. One thing you can do, I'm actually going to pull back up Excel. What are you guys seeing right now? I'm very confused.
Your PowerPoint.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
Yes.
So let's see if this will work. Are you looking at Excel again?
Yes, I can see Excel.
Great. I'm going to pull this back up. So one thing you might do with a monthly budget is actually create new tabs here at the bottom. So what you can do, let's say this is your January 2021 budget. You can actually right click on the tab here at the bottom and move or copy. If you click this mark, create a copy and move to end, it will actually create a new tab with the exact same information. So if you start with a template, you can basically create 12, say, tabs for each month of the year, rename them to match the months. And then with that data, you can create additional tabs to look at your overall spending for the year and get really complicated with Excel formulas and whatnot. But that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to use just a more broad annual budget, which would just be more like an overview of your spending for the year and wouldn't get quite as specific. There's a few different ways you could do it, but making duplicate tabs is probably the easiest based on what we had shown here. Does that answer your question?
I believe that does. Thank you, Bryn.
You're welcome. All right, let's do wrap up really quickly. So hopefully you're seeing the PowerPoint again. Some upcoming programs that might be really useful if this was an interesting topic and presentation for you. We're going to have Computer Skills Basics Parts 1 and 2 coming up. That's going to be an in-person program at a couple of locations. So you'll want to see the brochure to see where and when those are going to be. We also have Saving Success upcoming at Davis Library on Friday, February 24th at 12 p.m. Email Basics is going to be coming up at Haggard Library on Thursday, March 2nd at 6:30 p.m. That one is ticketed, so you'll want to make sure to get there about 30 minutes beforehand. And lastly, we recently had Pay Down Debt or Save, which is available on our YouTube channel, which is Plano Public Library, for viewing at any time at your discretion. Lastly, here is my contact information. If you have any questions, or if you have more general questions, you're welcome to send an Ask a Librarian or Book a Librarian request for more assistance with Excel, budgeting, and all of the above. Any final questions before we close out for the day?
I want to give it just a few moments, but right now we're all clear.
Fantastic. I'll leave my information up on the screen in case anyone does have specific questions. If you're interested in requesting that PowerPoint, you're also welcome to, or the PowerPoint or the Excel exercise, you're welcome to do so. I'll go ahead and once again promote Book a Librarian, which is an excellent resource for a 30-minute appointment with a librarian at a location and time of your choice. Excel is a subject we are fairly competent in as a whole. So if you have questions about doing something in Excel, we are more than happy to sit down with you and look through that. All right, final call for questions. Anyone?
Don't see any more questions, just lots of thanks in the chat. Oh, I'm so sorry. Actually, we just had one pop up.
Okay.
It says, would you show, oh, I think that where you showed how to copy the Excel sheet, if you would show that just one more time.
Certainly, we'll do that. Let me pull that back up. Are you looking at Excel again?
Yes.
Great. So if I want to copy a whole sheet here, a whole spreadsheet, if you look at these tabs at the bottom, you'll just right click on the tab. One of the options should be move or copy. You'll click that. This pop-up here is a little bit confusing and very small, which I apologize for. But essentially you can either move or copy sheets easily. So if I want it to appear at the end, I'll click on move to end and click on create a copy. So then that will create a copy of the January tab. And to rename it, you can either right click and go to rename, or I just double click it and it will let you type in there the new name. All right. Once again, thank you guys so much for joining us today. You guys had some great questions and I hope this was helpful to you. We hope to see you soon for our future programs. And if you need any assistance, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much.